On our planet, there seems to be an infinite number of beautiful places one can visit, with an equal number of spectacular things to admire. It requires nothing more than a curiosity to observe what is all around you. The miracle of nature manifests in countless ways, from breathtaking vistas to the simple movements of a common heifer. The purpose of this program is to present you with the extraordinary diversity of our miraculous blue planet so that you can discover these things for yourself. Today, in search of more miracles of nature, we shall discover Bolivia. Bolivia is a country of countless fascinating natural sights. We will begin on the high plateau of Altiplano, stopping by the world's largest salt lake. Later, we will descend a few thousand meters using the Road of Death, indeed, the world's most dangerous road, to the Los Yungas province. Here we shall encounter coca, a plant that is cherished by the natives despite its unflattering reputation the world over. We will round up today's journey on the shores of Lake Titicaca, the highest navigable lake in the world. When the conquistadors climbed over the highland belt, they were rewarded with a fascinating vista, and it wasn't snow. On the plateau of Altiplano, 3,700 meters above sea level, lies the Salar de Uyuni Salt Lake, the largest salt lake in the world. The quaternary lake of Bolivian evaporated almost entirely, leaving behind a salt lake with a surface area of 10,500 square kilometers. The surface area of this fascinating white plain is so large that it's visible by naked eye from outer space. There is so little water left that today, jeeps and buses cross the lake without any difficulties. Salar is a bottomless source of salt for Bolivia. At today's rate of output, some 25,000 tons of salt per year, Salar could remain operational for another 400 years. All that needs to be done is sweep the salt into mounds and transport it. Understandably, no trees can survive in the salty crust. One of the locals managed to outsmart nature, though. Instead of building his house out of wood, he used salt blocks instead. The straight horizon of Salar is disrupted by a single island, Isla Incahuasi. The only plants on Salar are ancient cacti, some of which grow as tall as 10 meters. The island was also known by a Spanish name, Isla del Pescado, meaning the island of fish. From afar, it resembles a giant fish coming out from the blinding white surface. Some 200 kilometers northwest of Salar lies Potosí, one of Bolivia's loveliest cities. It was established by the Spaniards in 1545, shortly after a shepherd discovered a silver source nearby. Potosí lies at an incredible height of more than 4,000 meters above sea level. Even so, it was once South America's largest and most prosperous city. Potosí is located at the foothills of Cerro Rico, Rich Mountain, a fascinating pink mountain. It is said that the ancient Incas knew of the huge amounts of silver hiding beneath here, but it was the Spaniards who began its extraction in the 16th century. The traditional manual techniques of acquiring this precious metal still survive. Each shaft has a strange scarecrow placed on every level. This is El Tío, meaning uncle, who represents the embodiment of evil. The miners stop by El Tío before each shift and offer cigarettes, alcohol, and some dried coca leaves as sacrifice. As strange as it may seem, worshipping El Tío is probably not a traditional Indian ritual. Apparently, it was the Spaniards who placed El Tío into the shafts to scare the superstitious Indians employed in the mines. Despite the primitive instruments used, there are several thousand passages dug through the mountain. It is still possible to find abundant sources of silver within the mountain, but the task is becoming increasingly more difficult. The work is not only hard, but also dangerous. About 20 miners die here every year. The fascinating Cerro Rico does not give up its treasures cheaply. The Altiplano Plateau is sparsely populated due to its incredible altitude, but also because very few domestic animals can be reared at this height. The families of settlers living on the plateau breed llama guanaco. It is an even-toed animal with a very peculiar gait. It's an ambler, meaning that it walks using both left legs at a time, followed by both right legs. It is a stunning and noble animal. The vast plain of Altiplano may be inhospitable, but it offers some incredible vistas. Here, Mother Nature really manifests its power. Beauty, but at the same time, fragility. There is also a limited water supply, and so the locals do their washing the old way, by the stream. The water is apparently so soft that it washes better than any machine. The whole family takes part. The colorful laundry is dried on the slopes, and these bright hues are the only contrast to the green and brown shades of Altiplano. On the endless, peaceful plains of Altiplano, time flows slowly. The llamas graze calmly on dry tufts of grass. We now set off from the Altiplano Plateau and travel a few thousand meters lower, all the way to Bolivia's region of Los Yungas. First, though, we must make it through the renowned Camino de la Muerte, the Road of Death, which is known as one of the world's most dangerous highways. All vehicles must go through a technical check before embarking on the precarious 70-kilometer descent. Any mechanical issues en route would mean blocking off what is the only road connecting Bolivia's capital of La Paz with the Los Yungas region. The sign informs us that on the short stretch of Camino de la Muerte, only 3 people died this year. In comparison to the previous years, this is a considerable improvement. The government has invested heavily into the reconstruction of the road's most dangerous segment. It was widened into 2 lanes, the surface was redone using tarmac, and the ever-present waterfalls were diverted below the road. Thus, ironically, this road is now probably the most modern piece of infrastructure in the whole of Bolivia. Among the overgrown cliffs, the rivers meander like the roads, bringing water into the valleys. From this viewpoint, the buses look like toys among the majestic mountains. It is becoming overcast. Rain and fog are commonplace and are a further nuisance to regular travelers. The climate is slowly changing with the decreasing altitude. The temperature as well as the humidity increase as we approach the rainforest of the Los Yungas province. Fauna and flora indicate that the northernmost part of Bolivia lies in the tropics, and so a part of the Amazonian jungle is slowly appearing. One may come across the green-winged macaw or the Macau parrot only a few kilometers from here. One of the most important crops grown in Los Yungas is coca. The locals are aware of its many uses. Using coca leaves to rub temples rids you of headaches. Coca blended with honey is excellent for an upset stomach, and chewing coca leaves supposedly helps to become accustomed to the altitude. Bolivia is one of the few countries where growing coca is legal. The bushes are about half a meter in height, are grown on neat little plots, and have shiny green leaves. In an ideal climate, the leaves are picked manually 4 times a year and dried. This is sometimes tricky in the rainy Yungas. Fortunately, 2 hours in the sunshine are enough. Coca growing has long been a thorn in the side, particularly to the United States. A white crystalline powder, cocaine, manufactured from coca leaves in secret laboratories in the jungle, often makes it to the US market. Coca cultivation is often the only possible means of making a living for the locals. A sack of dried coca leaves is worth $40, but each sack produced employs 12 people, which is a testimony to just how low the standard of living is here. When we descend lower still from the mountains, we find ourselves in the local Golden Triangle. Here the rainforest climbs up steep valleys past a trio of beautiful wild rivers: Rio Coroico, Rio Mapiri, and Rio Tipuani. The prevailing temperature is around 35 degrees Celsius in the shade, and the surrounding wetlands are an ideal habitat for never-ending swarms of mosquitoes. Coca is sometimes referred to as green gold in Bolivia, but regular gold is also found here. The local gold diggers live in temporary shelters and employ primitive techniques to pan for the mineral in streams diverted into artificial waterfalls. The acquired gold may be sold in the nearby town of Guané. As in the case of coca, the price here is not high. Bolivian gold doesn't sell particularly well internationally. Bolivia is a land of contrasts and natural miracles. We shall end today's adventures on the shores of the renowned Lake Titicaca, which lies back on the Altiplano plateau at an altitude of almost 4,000 meters above sea level. The immense lake has a surface area of 58,000 square meters and is also the world's highest navigable lake. At the Taquina Strait, the lake's narrowest part, it measures less than a kilometer. Without water transportation, the Bolivian villages of San Pedro and San Pablo would only be accessible through a very long detour through Peru. Pontoon-style ferry boats do not look particularly safe, but are stable. The weight is distributed on the whole surface, and so the journey is surprisingly calm despite the unfavorable weather conditions. It is surprising and kind of frightening to know that the strait is 270 meters deep. The famous island, Isla del Sol, lies in the middle of the lake. According to legend, the island is revered as the birthplace of the very first Incas, Manco Capac and his sisters Mama and Otzlo. Even though the island is named the Island of the Sun, the weather is unpredictable. The locals believe that an ancient city lies in the depths around here. This city is said to have existed long before Lake Titicaca came to exist. Many, including the famous Jacques Cousteau, attempted to find it, but were unsuccessful. There are several verifiable Inca monuments here. For example, the never-ending 300-step-long stairway, Escalera del Inca. The stairway leads to a triple source, Fuente del Inca, which irrigates the surrounding terraced water gardens. Its water is said to grant the island's visitors love, health, and never-ending youth. Ruins of the Pilcocaína Temple, two-story buildings with trapezoid windows and alcoves, lie 2 kilometers further. Apart from its historical monuments, the lake is also an important source of sustenance for the locals. The most popular local fish, the trout, is reared here only since 1939, when it was artificially released. Apart from the many fishermen, most of the local people work in agriculture. Heavy labor on the fields with little or no mechanization is not always rewarded with a good harvest. The most common crops are maize and potatoes. The area around Lake Titicaca is believed by some to be the cradle of these crops. Another island on the lake is named Suriki. Suriki is the home of the famous reed boats. No one knows if reed boat making is also a tradition inherited from the Incas or whether it is even older. The traditional technique of building boats out of reeds is now being replaced by planks and nails. Although reed boats have cultural meaning for the locals, modern ones have a longer lifespan. There is only one last workshop left on the island that specializes in building these classical reed boats. The making of a several-meter-long boat takes just 3 days and requires about 50 armloads of reed twigs. Despite the low costs involved, the manufacture of such floating devices isn't profitable. The lifespan of a single boat never exceeds 1 season, which is 8 months at most. The reeds are soaked by then, and the boat is dragged to the bottom. Regardless, this workshop was handpicked in 1970 by the famous Norwegian voyager Thor Heyerdahl to help him construct the vessel Ra II. He used it during his ambitious expedition from Morocco to the Caribbean island of Barbados. The so-called balsas de Tortora, the dangerous-looking reed boats, are currently being used only by the poorest of the fishermen. They propel themselves using poles, which indicates that the boats may only be used in relatively shallow waters. The head of a cougar on the bow is believed to bring luck, particularly during night hunts. On an open plain, some 20 kilometers from the lake, there is an obvious hill. Here, archaeologists are currently uncovering the foundations of a mysterious Acapana pyramid, which was an ancient observatory. The elevated rectangular platform, Kala Sasaya, which stands for Standing Stones, used to be a burial ground. Alongside the monoliths with human faces, there is also a huge 3-meter-high Gate of the Sun. The stone block weighing 10 tons split open during its previous manipulation. Copacabana is not just a world-renowned beach in Rio de Janeiro, but also the name of a town nestled between two steep slopes which form a natural gateway to Lake Titicaca. Kota Kauana, in other words, I see a lake, was a sentence uttered by a now forgotten Inca when he first stood here. The dominant feature of the town is a cathedral devoted to the Virgin of Copacabana, represented by a black 16th century statue which has never left this shrine. The patron of the whole of Bolivia rests in a dignified booth built by the Spaniards in 1620. Even so, the cathedral cannot be denied its Moorish style. The rain outside washes over the colorful decorative tiles known as azulejos. We end today's voyage in search of Bolivia's miracles of nature here, gazing at the mysterious and enchanting surface of Lake Titicaca. Here, as much as anywhere else, the natural world and human culture combine to form a breathtaking vision. Our journey to the miraculous nooks of our planet comes to an end for now. On the next exploration of our compelling and bountiful planet Earth, we travel to Africa, where we are in for a treat, a Zambian safari. Later, we'll head northward to Kurzem in Latvia. Here we will get to admire Europe's widest waterfall and some nearly extinct animals. An 8,000-year-old tradition of wine growing implies that Georgia is indeed the promised land of wine. In Georgia's Kakheti and Svaneti regions, we'll get to admire above all the beauty of rough mountains. That's all right here on Miracles of Nature. We hope you'll join us.